I'm really happy to be here today to talk about my new book, and I'm especially happy to have with me Pachan Premji, who is a traditional weaver, and Adil Khatri, who's a traditional bandhani artist, both of whom are graduates of the design school that the book is focused on. I want to thank Aiden and team at the Goldstein Gallery, Kristen and team at the Textile Center for making all of this possible. I have a copy, I have my advanced copy of the book. Many people went into the making of this book, and I tried in the book to acknowledge all of them, but briefly I'd like to thank Schiffer Publications for making such a beautiful book, and my friend and the renowned photographer Nevada Weir for contributing fabulous photographs, and most of all of the artisans who were part of the story. And I couldn't put all of them in the book, but each and every one of them was important in teaching me again and again how in a shared tradition each individual can have their own unique interpretation. And I think it's important to have Pachan Bhai and Adil Bhai here today because I chose to tell the story because it was a collaboration. It was learning and teaching on everyone's parts. And so I chose to tell the story as vignettes of some of the artisans who were part of it, intertwined with my own story. And as I think everyone knows, in an event or over any activity or event in which multiple people participate will have as many perspectives as there are participants. And of course, I tell the story from my perspective, but I think it's really important to hear Pachan Bhai and Adil Bhai tell their versions of the story. So I want to leave time for it. One last thing before I begin, you know, this is a story about a very small corner of India, and yet I think it has bigger themes, and I hope you will have the opportunity to read the book, and I think the most important theme is the transformative power of education, and I think today, at this very moment, we have to think about how important that is, and respect is the bottom line. Without respect, none of this would have happened. Respect on all parts. And finally, sustainability, we like to think about it, and I think craft can have a very important role in helping us to make a more sustainable world. One of the major problems of sustainability is that we just make and consume too much. And I think craft can help us to learn about value. We sustain what we value. Think about what you have at home that you'll never throw away. It's something that you value. Craft has the potential to create value because it's much more than a product. It's a connection between maker and user. So I hope that we can all look to craft to make our world more sustainable. Okay. My story begins in New Hope, Pennsylvania, a small town that was at the time an artist colony, and I grew up with artisans all around me. You could meet them, you could buy from them, sometimes ask them to make something special for you, and so that kind of was my foundation in understanding craft as a human connection. In 1970, I had the opportunity to go to India, and I went straight to Kutch, which is a desert area. You can see in the maps here where it is in India, in the state of Gujarat. And it's sort of like a cultural island, surrounded on two sides by the Gulf of Kutch, which feeds into the Arabian Sea, and on the other two sides by the uninhabitable Run of Kutch, a salt marsh. And that has helped to preserve cultural traditions, most notably from my view, craft traditions, okay? Early on in my time in India, I had the opportunity to meet Ali Muhammad Isha Khatri, who is a master, the late Ali Muhammad Isha Khatri, master artisan of bandhani. And I want to read a passage to this will give you an idea of where craft was by the time I came on the scene in 1970. In the 1950s, India began nation building. Leaders focused on rapid industrialization, inflation coupled with an influx of cheaper industrially produced products, and villagers, the traditional consumers of handcraft, began to prefer plastics, synthetics, and mill-made fabrics. Artisans were forced to seek alternative clients, and they looked to more distant, unknown markets. At the same time, the industrial concept of design as an entity, there's no word for design in India, was introduced to India. Designers sought inspiration from artisans, and artisans found aid in their quest for remote markets in designers, as well as traders. The commercialization of craft used an industrial model in which the assumed goals are to manufacture faster, cheaper, and in a more standardized way. By the 1970s, shops in Bhuj, the capital of Kutch, were filled with inexpensive bandhani saris for the urban mass market. But in the crowded Khatri Chakla neighborhood of Bhuj, bandhani artist Ali Muhammad Isha Khatri lived in a special world with a large old neem tree right in the middle of his tiny home. Ali Muhammad Bai had no interest in commercial bandhani. "I make one piece at a time," he said, "and each one is a masterpiece. My philosophy is that whatever I make should have something of me in it, myself. If not, I won't like it." He was a designer maker, an artisan designer, alive and well in post-industrial Kutch, and that got me started on my way. I worked early on with Rabari embroiderers. I think that connects to our exhibition upstairs. And I learned from people such as Harkuben, the woman on the right in the pink blouse, that each pattern and motif has a name and a meaning and tells the story of the history and the culture of the people who make and use it. I also learned that although all of the people in the community practice a common style of embroidery, the artisans themselves can see individual idiosyncrasies like handwriting or fingerprints, and they see their friends and their relatives in the embroidery. Okay. So after doing some research on Rabaris, I had the opportunity to go to India again, and I wanted to study the Suf embroidery of Maru Megwals and Soda Rajputs to see if I could similarly trace history and cultural heritage through embroidery as a language. Okay. And there I was with my notebook and my pen, very sincerely writing everything down, doing my research. And one of the artisans popped off the page, Diaben in the parrot green on the right-hand side. She said, "Why are you studying us? Why don't you help us?" And it was like, bong. So I thought, well, you know, I'm madly documenting your embroidery because commercialization is taking over, but I realized that there is an aspect of commercialization that artisans now need to earn from their traditions. And so I thought, well, what if they can actually practice their own work rather than doing someone else's and earn better? So Prakash Bhai, her brother, on the right side of that same photograph, and Diaben and I started Kalaraksha in 1993. And having a museum background, I started with a collection. We used it as a resource base for artisans to look at their traditions and reinvent them. And Haryaben on the left, she taught me so much. When we were putting together the interpretation center of the museum, we were dressing the mannequins, and we had embroidered tops because those were preserved, but we didn't have the bottoms. And she said to me, "What shall we use for the bottom?" And I said, "Traditional." And she said, "Which tradition?" And from that little phrase, I learned her understanding of tradition as ongoing, always evolving, not a fixed thing. Okay. So Kalaraksha was going on a wonderful success trajectory till 2001, when there was a massive earthquake that devastated Kutch and other parts of Gujarat. And we started a project called the Stone Soup Project, where we raised money and shared it with artisans in matching grants. And from that, I learned, of course, artisans did more work, but they did better work. That was quite amazing to me. And I noted it, and they said, well, you're giving us better money, we're going to do good work. So I realized the importance of a fair remuneration. Also, out of the earthquake, sometimes out of, this is a good message for today, sometimes out of bad things, some good can come. And one thing was that 2 different people asked me to have some of our artisans, by then we were working with about 1,000 women, do narrative work. The first time I said no because it's not a part of the tradition. The second time I said, okay, we'll try. And I asked Rani Ben, who had lost her home in the earthquake. She was a patchwork quilt maker. I asked her to make a piece that depicted her experience of the earthquake, and this is the piece she made, which I found profoundly moving. And I realized that you should not underestimate the capacity of people. You give them opportunity and see what they can do. Okay. So the second one more thing that came out of the earthquake that was good for me was that I had been thinking for a long time, mumbling to myself, they should have a design school for artisans, because when we worked with designers, it was often not very satisfactory for anybody. And so somebody came up to me, a reporter, and asked me, what do you want to see come out of this earthquake? And I said, a design school for artisans. And then I realized, uh-oh, I have to do it. And I started by asking, you know, I have a good idea, I think, but how about the people who are going to really be involved in it? So here we're having a meeting, and I'm asking the women at Kalaraksha, do you want to learn? They said, yes. I said, what do you want to learn? And one young woman piped up and said, don't teach us embroidery. That's what we do. Teach us something useful. And then Haryaben, the same Haryaben, there she is in the green on the swing, she said, well, you know, she a little bit tongue-in-cheek, she said, maybe we don't know so many designs, but if we learn to do our own, we won't have to rely on somebody else and work for somebody. So I thought, okay, I think we can go ahead. And that's our campus, our original campus, in a camel herding Rabari village on the Gulf of Kutch, beautifully designed and constructed by a very imaginative architect, Hemant Sangui, using very little cement and lime mortar and stone and old upcycled wooden elements from torn down Havelis. And I think he sort of gave us, the medium is the message. The campus itself created an atmosphere in which people could see that traditional can be contemporary and can be fashionable, okay? So I put together, I got an Ashoka Fellowship, and I designed a curriculum that went over a year, and thinking about artisans, and I wanted to make the education accessible. I think everyone loves to learn when the content and the method are appropriate. So I knew that I wanted this to be a school for traditional artisans who were working. There are plenty of design schools in India by now, by this time, in the early 2000s, but none of them were appropriate for artisans. So I knew that they couldn't really be away from their work for more than 2 weeks at a time, so I designed it as a modular curriculum for over a year, 6 2-week, very intensive courses interspersed with homework in which artisans were asked to bring what they had learned directly into their ongoing work. And I made the method as hands-on as possible, as minimum lectures, minimum writing, and bringing what, even in class, bringing what was learned directly into the crafts of the student participants. Okay. From the beginning, I wanted the school to reinforce existing traditions, not compete. And so the two main sources of inspiration used throughout the year are cultural heritage and, of course, nature, which is the best inspiration. And we engaged master artisans such as Ali Mohamed Isha, the same one that I introduced in the very beginning here, to come and work with the students, teach them about their traditions so that they would, whatever innovations they did, they wouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And all in all, I was trying to reimagine traditional systems in an appropriate contemporary form. Another important part of the curriculum was to connect artisans to contemporary markets. As in the passage that I read, artisans were now not interacting with their traditional clients that knew the craft very well. They were reaching for distant markets, so an important aspect was to reconnect the consumer and the artisan, let them know more about each other. So we included a market orientation course in which students went to Ahmedabad and went to shops and also homes of people who use craft. And also we had a convocation that had a gala fashion show. It was very popular, particularly among artisan communities, but also drew people from sometimes other countries. And that helped people, the students and their communities, to see craft as contemporary and fashionable. By 2014, I realized that I had really taken the course, which was a part of Kalaraksha. Kalaraksha Vidyalaya was its original avatar, to its limit within that context. So I joined forces with the KJ Somaya Trust in Mumbai, and we reinvented the course as Somaya Kalavidya, which is how it operates today. And I wanted to make sure to preserve our most valuable asset, which was the alumni, the artisan designer community. And so I began with a graduate course in business and management for artisans, and that kind of made a pretty seamless transition. And it was a very interesting course. I saw that artisans, all of the artisans who graduated could make wonderful designs. They all had skills. They began with skills, but they couldn't always reach the appropriate market. So this was a course to take design one step further and enable artisans to be independent, stand on their own feet. During that time, that initial transition period, I also learned how important asking for help was. We didn't have a campus anymore where we could hold our beautiful, popular fashion show. So I asked people in Pachan Bai's village, Pujodi, which is a lot of graduates by then had come from Bujodi, if they would host the fashion show for us, and they were very happy to, and it helped us to build stronger bonds. At Somaya Kalavidya, I really wanted to share the wonderful successes that we had had, so I started outreach projects. There's Pachan Bai working with weavers in Kumaon in the hills of northeast India. It was a program in which our graduates worked with artisans in less exposed regions, and kickstarted a realization of the importance of design in reaching new markets and regaining agency and also recognition. And I also started open studio tours and workshops that engaged visitors so that visitors also could appreciate the many, many skilled and capable artisans in the region. Okay. And with my friend and colleague Jenny Angus at the University of Wisconsin, I started a long-distance co-design project where artisans and their partners in Wisconsin designed together, and then the artisans in Kutch created the pieces that they had designed. And it was a way for artisans to continue using what they had learned, and also for students in the US to gain a respect for the abilities of traditional artisans. And then we also started seminars. This is a first seminar in which we discussed issues with which artisans, challenges that they dealt with. And here we're asking who wants their children to be artisans? Pretty many hands, but not everyone. Okay. So now I'm going to go through a couple of the persistent issues, the challenges that artisans face, artisan designers, and this will introduce you to a few more of the artisans who are featured in the book. This is Bharatbhai, and the issue that I think he personifies is how to start. He took the course when he was about 36, which is considered kind of old in the artisan community, and very talented artist, and he learned design really well, but it's a highly competitive field, and how to break in, how to get a name for oneself. And he really became adept at using social media to gain a following. Soyabhai, I think these are all challenges that everyone faces, but I think Soyabhai really personifies this scale. That's a big one. Because craft has been seen from a very early time in India as inferior manufacturing, there's a great push to produce in quantity. And it's very easy to get sucked into that, and that's a way toward success. It is a way toward excess also. So how does a creative person, I think all of you creative people will probably get this, how do you carve out time to still do your creative work, to do new work, and still earn a living, okay? Dayabai, it was our faculty person for 8 years in both Kalaraksha Vidyalaya and Somaya Kalavidya, and he became very successful, and I don't think anyone sees this coming. Success management. What happens when you're successful and you live in a very, like a pressure cooker, a tight-knit community in which status quo is really, that's the norm, okay? I think Adil Bhai and Pachan Bhai also have faced that. For women, there are other issues. Women have real social constraints in their ability to move out and interact with the markets that they need to reach. Sajjanuben Rabari is not literate, but she manages because she really wants to, and her son and daughter-in-law help her out. She has a very active Instagram account. Anyone on Instagram can follow Sajjanuben Rabari. Here's Adil Bhai and his wife Zakia Ben, who was a classmate. I wanted artisans to innovate within their traditions, to see their traditions not as constraints, but as assets, as a sort of an edge in the contemporary world. And Adil Bhai and Zakia Ben have begun to put a collection of antique bandhani together to use as a resource base. And here you see each of the artisans in the book made a piece specially for the book. They're on display right now at the School for Interior Design in New York. And you can see that Adil Bai's pieces, the black and the white in the middle, and z.umn.edu on the right, draw from the same tradition, even from the same collection pieces, but each have their own distinct character, their style. And here's Pachan Bai, also drawing from a tradition in which the extra weft patterning is the main characteristic. It's usually done with abstract geometric patterns, but Pachan Bai realized his strength was in storytelling, and he's used that same technique to create figurative images and tell stories. Another challenge is finding the right niche in the market. There are high-end niches in India. India is very lucky because it enjoys a vibrant domestic market, but those higher-end niches are really monopolized by trained designers. And somebody like Akib Bai here, who is a very skilled Ajrak artist, he can make these fabulous large-scale Islamic geometry-inspired pieces. And how does he get those to that higher-end market? There's a sari that he made for Lakme Fashion Week, which is kind of the pinnacle of fashion in India. But you can see that the stylist kind of overwhelmed his beautiful sari with the blouse that she created to make it look contemporary. I think now really the challenge that I would like to focus on is reinventing artisan and client relations. Traditionally, artisans and clients lived closely together. They shared the same criteria for evaluation. So creating was very satisfying for both the creator and the user, but that's no longer the case. So how do we bring the artisan and their consumer together? And I think meeting face-to-face is a really important way. Okay. So here we are in 2022, and when I was talking to some of the alumni, Mukhtar Bai, who was our faculty person after Dayabai, he's a bandhani artist, he showed me a fabulous piece that won the national award. It was a very prestigious award for craftsmanship in India. And I said, wow, that's amazing. So you're going to make it now, right? He said, no. And I was stunned. I said, why not? He said, it's not worth it. So that's really, in a nutshell, what the challenge is. How do we make craft worth it? Everyone who graduates from the school can not only do technically beautiful work, but also good designs. But how do we make sure that it's worth it for them to do it? Because if they don't feel it's worth it, they're not going to put in that extra effort. Okay, and finally, here's Shakil Bai, a batik artist, and I think sustaining craft has to do with making it joyful. And Shakil Bai has a huge pressure to produce inexpensive batik for the local market, but he keeps a table for himself when he just has to create. And I think that's really the heart and soul of traditional crafts, of craft, right? The human aspect. And Ismail Bai here on the right, he's one of our advisors, master artisan of Ajrak hand block printing, and he makes exquisite, small quantity replicas of traditional pieces now. And I said to him, Ismail Bai, this is the quality we want. How do we ensure this? He said, you have to make it with love. So make it with love and use it for love. That's the message. Thank you. So now I want to invite Adil Bai to give us some of his insights as being a traditional artisan and his education experiences.
I'm Adil. My name is Adil Khatri. I'm a bandhani artisan. I am practicing this craft since 2011. So learning it from my mother and my uncle, I started in 2011 and practices till 2013. And at certain time in 2013, I started feeling that The practicing typical and traditional bandhani is not working for me. So at the same time, I met Miss Judy Frater, and I got to know about the school for the traditional artisans. So at that time, I decided to join the school. So we went through 6 different courses, which includes color, basic designs, and market orientation, collection development, and concept and presentations. But the most particularly, I like the class about basic designs, and especially I like the chapter of simplification, because whenever you get inspiration from a nature or of a tradition, so like for example, you are taking the inspiration from a flower or a tree, but again you have to make it in your craft, so you cannot make exactly as it is in your craft. You have to simplify it, and also it should the essence of that inspiration should remain uh, even after simplifying the same. So that was the best learning of the design course, and still I'm using the same. Also, what I like about the color, and I still use it in my products. Once Miss Judy Frater said that don't use a color directly from the boxes. Mix and mix with the grays, blacks, and mix together to create new colors. I think that was the changing. Yes, we have some of examples. Thank you. So this was one of our storm collection. So we took inspiration from sandstorm and ice storm, and the storm that creates a whirlpool in the water and waves and raindrops. So again, it was very hard to like imagine storm and create a bandhani in it. So here I created whirlpools and waves, and this represents drops of the rain. Then we also made a collection on Islamic architecture and pattern. So I went to Delhi to study the Mughal architecture and patterns. So here it is. But the most special piece I would say is this. So during the class, it was we learned that it is not always like you see the inspiration, you make the thing as it is, right? So this particular one is inspired from the smoke of the incense, which is usually you'll find at the Islamic tombs and all that. So it represents the flowing smoke of the incense. Then we came across a new collection, recent collection, which was based on the geography, what to say, Pumiti, landscapes of the Kutch. So maybe some of you have been to the run of Kutch, which is full of crystal clear salt. So this was inspired by that. So if you have ever visited run of Kutch in the full night, so the salt reflects like a silver white, and there is a moon in the sky, black night and sky. So that was a one piece. Now I did exactly opposite of that piece. So then I came up with this. And Yes, yes. And here is the another one. Like the same thing, but it has a like when the sun is there, but you still see the moon at the same time at the other side. And when sun sets, it start to get dark. And this particular, we named it as a midnight madness. Thank you.
So now Pachan Bhai will talk about his education experiences, and he will speak in Gujarati and I will translate for him. Tamaro.
મારું કામ કરવાનું જ્યારે હું કામ કરતો હતો ત્યારે મારી ડિઝાઇનો છે એમને જોઈને જ હું કામ કરતો હતો. પણ જ્યારે મને ખબર પડી કે જ્યારે માર્કેટમાં વેચાતી નથી, કોમ્પિટિશન થાય છે, ત્યારે એવું લાગ્યું કે આપણે ડિઝાઇન ક્લાસ કરવા જેવું છે. પણ મનમાં એક ડર હતું કે હું ડિઝાઇન ક્લાસ નહીં કરી શકીશ.
So he was working like just copying designs that were given to him, and he saw that they weren't really selling that well. So his brother had taken the design course. He's a weaver. And he thought he should take the course, but he had a fear.
ડર એટલા માટે હતું કે મને લખતા વાંચતા ના આવડતું હતું, એટલે મને ડર હતો કે હું ક્લાસ પૂરો નહીં કરીશ અને ઇંગ્લિશમાં મને બોલતા નથી આવડતું અને કાંઈ પણ મને પૂછશે તો હું શું જવાબ આપીશ. એટલે મારા મગજમાં એ હતું કે હું 1-2 ક્લાસ કરીને પછી મૂકી દઈશ.
So he is not literate. He can't read and write. And he thought, so I won't be able to be educated. And I don't know English. What if they ask me something I can't give the answer? So he went with his friend, actually, to give him some support when his friend went for the interview for the school. And he said, I'll just take a couple of courses and then leave it.
પછી જ્યારે ક્લાસ કર્યા બાદ સમજણ પડી કે ડિઝાઇન એજ્યુકેશનની અંદર લેંગ્વેજ બેરિયર કાંઈ નથી. તો મને ઘણું બધું શીખવા મળ્યું અને જેમ જેમ ક્લાસ આગળ વધતા ગયા એટલે મને અલગ અલગ વસ્તુ સમજવામાં આવી અને ખબર પડી કે ડિઝાઇન શું છે, ડિઝાઇન એલિમેન્ટ શું છે, ડિઝાઇન પ્રિન્સિપલ શું છે. એટલે જેમ જેમ આગળ ક્લાસ જતો જ ગયો અને હું મારા કામની અંદર હરફેરે કંઈક નવું કરતો ગયો.
So he took a couple of classes and he realized that language wasn't a barrier, and he began to learn. Then he got more and more into it. It's a memory issue, not a language issue. And he began doing new things in his work, and that really inspired him to keep going.
જ્યારે કલેક્શન બનાવી અને જ્યારે માર્કેટમાં વેચવા ગયો તો મારું કલેક્શન બહુ ચાલ્યું, સારું વેચાણું. પણ મને મજા ના આવતી હતી. મને એમ થતું હતું હું અહીંયા પૈસા ભેગા કરવા આવ્યો છું શું છે, એટલે લોકો મને ભૂલી જતા હતા. તો પછી મેં મારી ખાસિયતને ઢૂંઢી ગોતી કે મારી ખાસિયત શું છે. એટલે મારી ખાસિયત મને ખબર પડી કે હું ડિઝાઇનને એબ્સ્ટ્રેક્ટ કરવામાં અને કોન્સેપ્ટમાં મારો પકડ સારી છે.
So he became successful, and he said, yeah, I was earning, but I wasn't satisfied. He thought, what is this? I'm just doing this for money. And then he thought about it, and he did some introspection. He realized that his strength was the ability to grasp a concept and express it.
અને એવી જ રીતના મેં અલગ અલગ કલેક્શન લોન્ચ કર્યા, જેમ કે ગ્લોબલ વોર્મિંગ છે, પછી ફાઇન કોન છે, અને સ્ટોરી ઓફ ક્લાઉડ છે, અને પલાસ છે. અને રિસન્ટલી મેં નવું કલેક્શન લોન્ચ કર્યું છે. કેમ કે પછી મને વિચાર આવ્યું કે આટલું બધું કામ અને ડિઝાઇન એજ્યુકેશન લીધા બાદ મને એટલી બધી પ્રેરણાની શક્તિ ક્યાંથી મળે છે. તો મને સમજમાં આવ્યું કે આ બધું મારી મા પાસેથી મને શક્તિ મળી છે. તો પછી મેં વિચાર્યું કે હું મારા મા ઉપર કલેક્શન બનાવીશ.
So he started doing collections with themes, like he did one on global warming, one on clouds, one on a pine cone. When he went to Kumau and was doing that outreach project. He saw a pine cone for the first time, and he made a fabulous collection out of the pine cone. And then he thought, where am I getting all these inspirations? Actually, the root inspiration is my mother. So he did a whole collection on his mother. And I'm wearing a poncho that Pachan wove that is inspired by his mother. Each of the ponchos he has on, I hope you'll all come to the Textile Center. Each of his pieces, each of Adil Bai's pieces also are unique. They're not doing in production. And each of the ponchos has a unique story inspired by his mother. And this scarf that I'm wearing is one of Adil Bai's designs.
જેમ કે હું તમને એક સ્ટોરી સંભળાવી શકીશ.
He's going to tell you a story now.
આની અંદર સ્ટોરી એવી રીતના દર્શાવી છે કે આ મારા બા છે એમની સાથે હું છું અને મારા બેન છે.
That's his mother and his sister and him. And you see you have to come up close, I think, three-dimensional braids of the little girl, yeah?
તો પછી જ્યારે બા અમને પાવડોમાં લઈ જાય છે અને આમ મારી બેનને કહે છે તમે જોરથી અવાજ કરો, તો મારી બેન જોરથી અવાજ બોલે છે હું તમને ઘણું બધું પ્રેમ કરું છું. તો રિફ્લેક્સ થઈને આવે છે આઈ લવ યુ મોમ. એટલે નેચર કહે છે કે કુદરત જે ભગવાન જે આપણે કહે છે કે તમે કોઈનો અવાજ દબાવી નથી શકતા.
So they went into the hills and his mother told his sister, say something loud. She said, I love mom. And then his mother said, see, don't let anyone suppress your voice. Good message for today.
તો બા અમને શીખ આપે છે કે જીવનમાં છે સ્ત્રી છે એ નારી શક્તિ છે. એના માટે છોકરી અને છોકરો બે સમાન છે.
So his mother taught them that it says in Gujarati, Nari Shakti, which is women power, and his mother says there's no difference between boys and girls. And it's all natural dyed.
Yeah. જે આ પીસ છે એ સ્ટોરી ઓફ ક્લાઉડનો છે અને આની વાર્તા એવી રીતના બનાવી હતી કે વાદળ જ્યારે છોકરાને દાદીમાં વાર્તા સંભળાવે છે, જ્યારે છોકરો સુવા જાય છે ને એને સપનું આવે છે. સપનામાં એનું ઘર હોય છે, એના ઘરની બાજુમાં ઝાડ હોય છે ને એ પોતે બારે આવી અને બાને કહે છે ચાલો કંઈક વાદળમાં કંઈક અવાજ આવે છે આપણે બારે નીકળીએ. તો એ બાને લઈને બારે આવે છે.
So this is the story of clouds, and the child goes to sleep and he hears a noise and he wakes up his mom and says there's some noise coming from the clouds.
બારે આવે છે.
So they come outside, okay.
જ્યારે
to be continued.
તો વાદળમાં પરી દેખાય છે.
So he comes out and he sees a fairy in the clouds. And he's used unspun cotton for the texture in this fairy.
પછી આ ગ્લોબલ વોર્મિંગનું પીસ છે. એની અંદર એક સાઈડ ઝાડ સૂકી રહ્યું છે અને બીજી સાઈડ છે એ ગ્રીન છે. એ મારા ટ્રેડિશનલ મોટિવને એબ્સ્ટ્રેક્ટ કરીને આપણે ગ્રીનરી બતાવી છે. એટલા માટે હજી પણ આપણી પાસે ટાઈમ છે એને આપણે ઘણા બધા ઝાડવા લગાવીને બચાવી શકીએ.
So this is global warming. He made a tree in the middle that's dried up on one side. That's the danger of global warming. But on the other side is a tree and also the traditional motif. So he said, we still have time. It's in our hands. We can turn this around.
આ પણ વાદળની વાર્તા ઉપર છે. જ્યારે છોકરી કે છોકરો કાંઈ રમતો હોય તો વાદળમાં ફોર્મ જુએ તો જેવો જેનું કામ, જેમ કે મારું કામ વિવિંગનું છે તો હું મોટી મારા વિવિંગની અંદર આકાશમાં જોઈ શકું છું. એવી જ રીતના જેવું જેનું કામ એ પોતાનું કાંઈ પણ વિચારીને એને ફોર્મ મળી શકે છે.
So he said clouds are, this is a story of clouds. You see in the clouds what's part of your life. He's a weaver, so he'll see things related to weaving in the clouds, but it's sort of like a Rorschach, right? Oh.
અને આ વાર્તાનું જ છે. જ્યારે છોકરા દાદીમા પાસે વાર્તા સાંભળે છે તો દાદીમા વાર્તા નથી સંભળાવતા, ગીત સંભળાવે છે. તો એ ગીત ઉપર છે કે જ્યારે કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન વાંસળી વગાડે છે અને ગોપીઓ નાચે છે આવી રીતના.
So this is about story of clouds, and the child is hearing from the grandmother, and she's not telling stories but singing songs, and the song is about Krishna, the Lord Krishna, and Gopi and the gopis.
એટલે પછી મને આઈડિયા આવ્યો કે આપણે પ્રોડક્ટ ઘણા બધા બનાવતા હોઈએ પણ સોંગ પીસ નથી બનાવતા, એટલે મેં આ સોંગ પીસ બનાવ્યો છે. વાવાયાને વાદળયું મટ્યા ગોકુળમાં ટંક્યા મોર મળવા આવો સુંદર વર્ષા મળ્યા. સામળિયા એટલે કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન શ્યામ રંગના હોય છે અને દાદીમાં એને બધું સમજાવે છે કે જ્યારે કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન વાંસળી વગાડે ત્યારે મોર નાચે, ફૂલ છે ખીલી જાય છે, ઘણા બધા સારા તરંગો નીકળે છે.
So it's a song about Krishna, and when Krishna plays the flute, the peacock dances, and everyone is happy.
Thank you.
I'm a little overwhelmed, so I will just say thank you, Pachan. Thank you, Adil. Thank you, Judy. We're just so lucky to have you here. Thank you. We can invite questions, but I will be strict about asking you to use a microphone because thanks to Al, we have this wonderful video that we can share with our students in classrooms, with our public audience. And Al put this together with 24 hours notice, so thank you to Al. I would like to ask the first question, and I hope that Kristen may answer it. Where and when in the next few days might we see trunk shows and demos from these incredible artisans we have here?
Well, I think probably Judy could answer this too, but yeah, Textile Center come starting tomorrow through Saturday. There are trunk sales for both Pachan and for Adil, and you can get copies of Judy's book here tonight. Those are also available for sale at Textile Center, and both Adil and Pachan will be doing demonstrations of their wonderful techniques all 3 days, so Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We are open 10 to 7 on Thursday, and then 10 to 4 on Friday, and 10 to 4 on Saturday. So, yeah, thank you.
Questions? Okay. And I call dibs on the clouds with the fairy.
Thank you. I didn't know those I love the art. It's beautiful, and I felt that beauty just by seeing it. But when you shared the story of what inspired it, I felt a different connection. And so I'm curious, as you're marketing, are you including your story about your inspiration? Do you think that's important? It's beautiful on its own, but that's my question.
જ્યારે વસ્તુ દેખાય તો બહુ સુરેખ લાગે, પણ જ્યારે વાતો સાંભળે તો વધારે પ્રેમ થાય. તો જ્યારે તમે વેચવા જાઓ તો તમે કેવી રીતે સ્ટોરી
કેમ કે વેચવા જઈએ એટલે અમને ખુશી આવે, કેમ કે આ ખાલી અમારા માટે પૈસાનો સ્ત્રોત નથી, અમારી પોતાની ભાવના છે, અમારી એક ફિલિંગ છે, અને અમે લકી છીએ જે અમને આ ક્રાફ્ટ મળ્યો છે, જેના થકી અમે સારું કામ કરી શકીએ છીએ.
So when he goes to sell, it's not only about money, it's about a feeling. And he feels that being an artisan is lucky because he has that opportunity.
હા, જેમ અત્યારે પ્રેઝન્ટ કરી એવી જ રીતના અમે પ્રેઝન્ટ કરી શકીએ.
Just like he presented to you right now, he does that when he sells. I think usually, he usually, you know, the main way that craft is sold in India is in pop-ups. It's not a new idea, it's the main idea. So he or his brother, one of his two brothers, his brand is 3 threads because there are 3 threads in the weaving, warp, weft, and extra weft, but there are 3 brothers, and the weaving, the thread ties them together. So one of them goes, and they're very good at telling stories. They like to tell stories.
Thank you.
I was wondering what are the fibers, you know, that are in the pieces that we've seen, and also perhaps some of the dyes that were used.
Fiber and dyes.
ફાઈબર સિલ્ક હોય છે, ફાઈબર સિલ્ક હોય છે, અને નેચરલ ફાઈબર હોય છે. જેમ કે આપણે નેચર સાથે જોડાયેલ છીએ એટલે કોઈને સ્કિનને નુકસાન ન થાય, અને આપણું જે ટ્રેડિશનલ જે કામ છે, જે આસપાસની વસ્તુ લઈને યુઝ કરી શકીએ એવું અમે મટીરિયલ યુઝ કરીએ છીએ. અને બેમ્બુ ફાઈબર છે, વૂલ છે, અને દેશી વૂલ છે, ઘણા બધા મટીરિયલ છે જે અમે યુઝ કરીએ છીએ, અને નેચરલ ડાય પણ યુઝ કરીએ છીએ.
He said we're connected to nature, so we use natural materials, and it's good. It doesn't harm your skin.
I have used mostly silk in my collections, particularly mulberry silk, habutai, tussar silk, and munga silk. Also, we are using Maheshwari, which is a kind of a blend of cotton and silk. So there is a warp in a silk, and a weft is a cotton, which I personally like, and it absorbs the dyes very well. And the indigos you see here are all the natural plant-based indigos, and also we use synthetic dyes, but azo-free acid dyes.
નેચરલ ડાય છે, આઇઝો ફ્રી ડાય છે.
You stress the effectiveness of artist-client connection and relationship. I have sort of a 2-part question. Of one, is that enough to have all your students earn a living for a long period of time? And if not, or in addition, what are your other techniques for disseminating the wonderful things that are being produced here?
The first part, you mean going out and doing the pop-up shows, is that enough? Right. Okay. And what other ways? Okay, I think they should answer that question. તમે exhibition attend કરો, પણ તે સિવાય કેવી રીતે વેચાણ કરો છો?
એ સિવાય પહેલે અમે એક્ઝિબિશન કરતા હતા, પણ હવે અમે વર્ષના 1 થી 2 ટાર્ગેટ કરીએ છીએ, અને અમે અમારા કામના એ લેવલ ઉપર લઈ ગયા છીએ કે હવે લોકો અમને અમારા કામને ગોતી ગોતીને આવે છે.
So they now they don't have to run after every invitation that they get. They choose a few a year, and now they have built a clientele who come to them.
So I also do like 3 or 4 exhibition in the metro cities of India, and also we have a tie-up with the craft store in Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. Also, I feel like word of mouth is very important, and now, as Pachan Bhai says, people also directly come to us by following.
Online?
Yeah, also, of course. How can we miss that? We also sell through online. I mean, not exactly as a listing on the website and like that, but we use a social media as well as WhatsApp and things like that to sell. So usually we send a nice photograph to customers. They select and we dispatch.
જેમ કે કલેક્શન એક લોન્ચ થઈ ગયું અને સ્ટોરી બધાને મજા આવી ગઈ એટલે હવે અમારી સાથે લોકો જોડાયેલ છે અને હર વર્ષે કંઈક નવું થીમ નવું સ્ટોરી સાંભળવાની લેવાની મજા આવે છે લોકોને અમારી પાસે.
He said now the clients that he has captured love the stories and they're waiting for the next collection.
હવે અમારી સાથે એમનું રિલેશન બિલ્ડ થઈ ગયું એટલે અમને મજા આવે.
Yeah, he's built relations. And, you know, like when I wear these, I remember Adil Bhai. This is not just a scarf, it's Adil Bhai's scarf. And this is Pachan Bhai's. It's sort of almost like, yeah, it's... Yeah, it's not just a product, it's a introduction, it's a knowing each other. And I have to tell you that Pachan Bhai did a co-design project with the University of Wisconsin in 2017, and he has kept in touch with that student, she's no longer a student, for all those years. And she happened to call him when we were in New York, and we realized she was in New York, and she came and met him face-to-face for the first time. So that's the kind of connection that you can have through handcraft.
Adil, can you talk a little bit about collaborating with your wife and how that works?
Right. So even though we have our separate brands, Zakia has Bairaj, which means the rule of women, and mine is Nilak, which means greens. So we collaborate whenever I make a collection and designs, she gives her own input and how she visualizes my theme, and she gives her input. And according to that, I also make changes in it. Sometimes also we rely on each other's strength. Like Zakia is very, very good with asymmetric, balanced kind of designing, and I'm very good with color and dyeing and stuff. So she also take my help in color mixing and all these things. So yes, we collaborate every day.
And Pachan, you collaborate with your brothers. How do you do that?
પહેલે જ્યારે ભાઈએ ડિઝાઇન ક્લાસ કરી લીધું હતું ત્યારે મેં ન કર્યું હતું ત્યારે અમારું બેનું જે બેલેન્સ બિલકુલ ન હતું કેમ કે એ મને ડિઝાઇનિંગ ભાષામાં કહે કે આપણે હાર્મોની ઉપર કામ કરવું છે તો પછી એ લોકોને હું ના પાડું કે આ વસ્તુ ના ચાલે આ ડિઝાઇન એલિમેન્ટના નામ લે જેમ કે એબ્સ્ટ્રેક્ટ કરવો છે કે એસિમેટ્રિકલ કરવો છે નેગેટિવ પોઝિટિવ કરવું છે તો મારા મગજમાં એમ આર્ટિઝનની એક સોચ હોય કે એકદમ હેવી ડિઝાઇન હોય એકદમ ભરચક ડિઝાઇન હોય તો જ વેચાય જ્યારે મેં ડિઝાઇન ક્લાસ કરી લીધું એટલે હવે અમે અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગ એકદમ ક્લિયર હોય છે અમારું વિઝન કે આપણે કયા માર્કેટ માટે આપણે ડિઝાઇન ચૂઝ કરીએ છીએ કયા માર્કેટ માટે કલર ચૂઝ કરીએ છીએ.
So when his brother first took the course and they were working together, he said we didn't have any balance at all because his brother would be using this design terminology and he was like, I don't know what that is and we don't have to use that. But then when he took the course, he got it and now they really work together. And I have to say the third brother, Damji Bai, he really wanted to take the course. It's hard to get away. You really have to get a lot of family support to get away for that year. Even though it's only 6 2-week sessions, it's really a whole year of intense introspection and working. So Damji Bai said, I feel like I've taken the course just by being with my 2 brothers, which is really nice. Okay, healthy competition among them. Yeah, one time they were, both he and his brother were in outreach projects at the same time in different places. His brother was working with weavers in Karnataka and Pachan Bai was working with weavers in Kumau, and we had a pop-up show with all of them. So they both made their collections and sold them. So healthy competition.
મને આવીને મને કીધું કે આ બધા ન્યુટ્રલ કલર નહીં ચાલે તો પછી હું કાંઈ બોલ્યો નહીં તો મેં એ લોકોને એટલો જવાબ દીધો હું નહીં બોલું મારું કામ બોલશે.
So his brother had a bright collection. It was beautiful and it did sell. And then he told Pachan Bai, your neutral colors, the pine cone collection, aren't going to sell. And he says, I'm not saying anything, my work will speak. And the brilliant thing that Pachan Bai did was he made saris all from the same warp, but each one was unique because of the wefts. And he sold, when I went to see what they were doing, I said, no, let's see what you've got and what are you selling them at? And Purushottam Bai, his brother, said 8,000 rupees for a sari, and Pachan Bai said 25,000, and I was like, and then I said, this is education, they will learn. They will learn. Who learned? Me. Because his saris being one of a kind, and you know, if it's really good, people will pay that. So he had fewer saris and he sold more. And that's the sustainability message, right? Confidence. Confidence is the biggest byproduct of education, right? You have to get a mic.
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful model for cultivating traditional arts and bringing the practice into the present, the future. But it's an easy model for something like visual arts and textile arts because they can be commodified so easily. So I'm wondering if you think this model could translate into things that are not so easily commodified, like performing arts, and whether anybody has tried that in the Kutch area.
The short answer to that is no, but I'll ask them what they think about that. શિક્ષણનો theory ના ક્રાફ્ટમાંથી સારો વસ્તુ બનાવી શકે વેચી શકે પણ what about બીજા art? Suppose સંગીત યા તો નાચ નાટક dance હા થઈ શકે શું લાગે?
Yeah, possible.
He's going to think about it, how it could be done. Well, I mean,
ખાલી ડિઝાઇન એજ્યુકેશન અમારા પ્રોડક્ટમાં પણ નહીં પણ જ્યારે અમે અમારા પોતાના કપડાં લેવા જઈએ ક્યાં ટીવી શો ચાલુ હોય તો એ બધા વર્ડ્સ યુઝ કરતા હોય મૂવમેન્ટ ને એબ્સ્ટ્રેક્ટ ને એ બેઝિક ડિઝાઇનના ટર્મ યુઝ થતા હોય છે.
Yeah, it's the education has entered his worldview. So even when he goes to buy clothes or look at TV, he's thinking about design. But you want to say anything?
I guess as far as the artist has some base or a background tradition with him, then like education worked as a refining our practice, I guess. So I guess, I mean, એમની પાસે પણ જો કાંઈ પણ સંગીત છે બેઝ, એનું બેઝ હોય, એની હિસ્ટ્રી હોય, એના ટ્રેડિશનલ શું હતું એને ખબર હોય, તો પછી એ કરી શકે. I mean,
Yeah.
apply થઈ શકે.
He said it's important to have the basis of your tradition from which to innovate. I think even in our world here, it's musicians and performing arts, they have to perform, right? Or, I suppose, video.
Yeah, the problem is that the commodification of things like music and dance, whether it's video or audio, tend to be in the hands, in India at least, in my experience, I work in Jharkhand, tend to be in the hands of marketers and business people, and it's very difficult for performing artists to get a foothold in there, right? And language is also a problem for them if they don't know English, for instance. Yeah.
ઝારખંડમાં કામ કરે છે એની માર્કેટની ઝારખંડમાં માર્કેટની અંદર આવવો બહુ મુશ્કેલ છે એની ભાષાની પણ વાત છે for music and dance.
જ્યાં લિમિટેશન આવશે ત્યાં જ નવું થઈ શકશે.
Go ahead, tell it. No, he says where there's a limitation is where you're going to get something new. It's good learning from education, right?
Thanks, Aiden. Thank you very much for being here. Dhanyavad. It was lovely to see your art. Question I have is, are there connections between sort of more traditional, sort of colonially informed education, like the National Institute of Design, where people are coming in without skills and being taught skills and design, whereas what you have is people who are very skilled coming in to learn design. And I'm just curious about what are the interactions between those types of education and the amazing things you have done.
I'm going to ask them, but first I want to say something. I think, one of the intentions of the school was that the status of artisans, when professional designers were brought in to work with artisans, rather than being the masters of their own, they were the designers, the creators, and the marketers of their own work, and they became workers for somebody, and their status plummeted, right? So that was one thing we were working with. But I want to ask them what they think. અમુક ડિઝાઇન સ્કૂલ, બાકી ડિઝાઇન સ્કૂલમાં કારીગરી વગર લોકો આવે છે, એમ જ આવે છે, અને આ લોકોનો તમારો સંબંધ શું છે? Is that, you want to know that?
माने आप जब आते हैं, I don't know if you understand Hindi, but आप जब आते हैं तो कारीगरी ऑलरेडी आपको आती है, तो आप उन स्कूल्स को इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं कि नहीं, जहाँ पे लोग कारीगरी के बिना आते हैं?
That's a big question.
वो उन लोग को इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहा है.
Influence in terms of how?
Influence.
From their methodology to those schools that may have existed.
પરિણામ
અસર કરે, influence કરે.
ડિઝાઇનિંગ અસર કરે.
Influence and
આ લોકો તમારા કારીગરીમાંથી પ્રેરણા કરીને કાંઈ કરે છે પણ કરતા નહીં આવડે, તમારા થ્રુ કરાવે છે, એ મારો દૃષ્ટિથી.
So, but I think what
હા, સોરી. પણ જ્યારે કારીગરની દ્રષ્ટિએ વિચારીએ, જ્યારે સુધી કારીગરને ચેલેન્જ નહીં મળે ત્યાર સુધી એને કાંઈ નવું શીખવા નહીં મળે. કેમ કે પહેલે શું હતું, અમારી પાસે ડિઝાઇનર આવે અને અમને ડિઝાઇનિંગ આપે અને અમારે લિમિટેશન હતા ત્યાં. હવે એવું નથી, અમારા લિમિટેશન તૂટી ગયા છે. હવે અમે નવું વિચારી શકીએ છીએ. હવે કોઈ પણ ડિઝાઇનર અમારી સાથે આવે છે ને તો એવું એ લોકોને કે એવી રીતે નથી બનાવી દેતા, એમની સાથે બેસીએ, કેમ કે લેઆઉટ ડિસ્કશન કરીએ. એકચ્યુઅલી એને કયા માર્કેટ માટે જોઈએ છીએ, કેવું મટીરિયલ જોઈએ છીએ, એનો શું બજેટ છે, આ બધું પ્લાનિંગ કરી અને એમની સાથે આપણે એક રસ્તો સારો ગોતીએ છીએ. કેમ કે બંનેને વિન વિન થાય. કેમ કે જો જ્યારે માર્કેટમાં બને જશે ને તો જ માર્કેટને અને કસ્ટમરને સંતોષ થશે.
So he said originally, before they had design education, the designers would come and give them work to do, give them designs, and that was the limit. But we've broken that limit, and now when they come, we give them ideas, and we discuss. Everything is sort of more like a co-design now.
પછી ડિપેન્ડ છે એને કઈ દિશામાં જવું છે, બિઝનેસમેન બનવું છે, કારીગર બનવું છે.
Yeah, it depends on what do you want to be. Do you want to go in the direction of becoming a businessman or being an artisan? And that goes for, I guess, the urban design students too, right? Yeah. Adil, bye.
ક્વેશ્ચન એમ હતું કે એ આપણે મતલબ અમે બાંધણી આર્ટિઝન છે, સપોઝ શીખી અને એ શીખ્યા વગર તો એ કેવી રીતે ઇન્ફ્લુઅન્સ થાય છે?
ડિઝાઇન શીખે પણ કારીગરી નહીં આવડે તો
ડિઝાઇનિંગ કરે કે ના તમારું ડિઝાઇનિંગ કરે પાવડ પહેલાં કોલા ચીંદા પાકે ડિઝાઇનિંગ શેખાલા ચીંદા હાણે પા ડિઝાઇન એજ્યુકેશન કે નહીં ગણાય હાણે પા કોર કાંઈ હતા એ જ રસ્તો હે ને બોયઝ બેને લેઆઉટ ડિસ્કશન કરી.
And he used the win-win term also.
કોઈ પણ માર્કેટમાં લોન્ચ કરે.
આઈ થિંક આ તો રહેવાનું જ છે. આઈ મીન
Go ahead, talk.
I feel that it is going to be like that because it is, I guess, not possible for everyone to learn art. So as far as we get respect and fair craftsmanship to the craftsman, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, designers need artisans. Artisans don't necessarily need designers if they can do their own work. Yeah.
That's my point of my question.
Yeah.
Is your system of education where the craft learning comes first? Is that having an impact on other more colonial systems of education, like the national?
No, the colonial model is to make someone else do your work, right?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
What you're doing, is that having an impact on like the national institute?
આપણા જે આર્ટિસન ડિઝાઇનરનો ઇન્સ્ટિટ્યૂટ એનઆઈડી ઉપર અસર કરે છે કે નહીં? કારણ પણ તમે કીધું ના, I think Adil Bhai said that, they didn't learn, the people at the National Institute of Design have what, 3-4 years, maybe 5 years? I think more like 3-4 years. And it took them way longer than 3-4 years to learn. It's a traditional craft is imbibed from childhood. It's like, I think, Anne, you asked Pachan by how he learned to cook. He said by being there and watching. I just, when it came time to do it, I already knew it. I think the best description I ever heard was from a Rabari woman. And when in the school we have intake interviews, baseline interviews, and then we see what happens over the year. So I asked this older Rabari woman, how did you learn embroidery? She said, I didn't learn it, I knew it. And that's what tradition is, right? Learning to her was something artificial, right?
ડિઝાઇનિંગ છે એ એકચ્યુઅલી એને નુકસાન નથી કરતો, પણ એને પ્લેટફોર્મ ઉપર લઈ આવે છે. એકચ્યુઅલી ડિઝાઇનર અને આર્ટિઝન ડિઝાઇનમાં ફરક એટલો હોય છે, કેમ કે પહેલે જ્યારે કામ કરતા હતા ને તો ડિઝાઇનરને એમ થતું હતું કે આર્ટિઝન બિચારો છે, પણ એકચ્યુઅલી આર્ટિઝન બિચારો નથી. કેમ કે હવે ડિઝાઇન એજ્યુકેશન લીધા બાદ એને એક પ્લેટફોર્મ ને એક જગ્યા મળી છે. કેમ કે અત્યારે જ્યારે કોઈ પણ પ્રોડક્ટ બનાવીને લોન્ચ કરવું હોય ને તો બંનેનું વિન વિન નામ આવી શકે. એન્ડ ધ ગુડ પ્લેટફોર્મ.
Yeah, originally the relationship was that designers and other people working with artisans felt that they were, bechara means beggars like, poor guys, you know. We have to help these poor guys. You still remember this when you see it. You'll see it all the time. The marketing strategy, help these poor people, you know, contribute, support them. You're not supporting them. You're having an opportunity to buy something fabulous. That's, you know, and he said now there's more of an equal platform where, you know, since they have their own platform, they have some strength. And we were talking this morning about, you know, that mutually accepted situation. So if somebody says, you're a poor guy, and then the artisan says, yes, I'm a poor guy, you know, and then that you get kind of locked into that, but you have to break out of it. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.